natural conversation for us to have. And there are things at various time horizons that you're looking at. So obviously I've been thinking a lot about brain-computer interfaces.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing where you're public about it way in advance of any sort of products or things like that. But it just sort of fits into that overall conversation. So it wasn't that strange a conversation. It was like we're always talking about mobile gaming platforms and the trade-offs that we feel exist for ourselves as game players and as game developers. So it was pretty natural.
So it sounds like you didn't really need much convincing. It was a pretty organic idea.
It's like any gamer. It's like somebody comes along and says, here's actually the kind of gaming experience where you can take the best games in the world and run them in a mobile environment. We all have known that forever, right? I mean, if you'd asked gamers 20 years ago, they would have been saying the same thing. It's just we're sort of at the point now where the technologies, the enabling technologies advance, the mobile gaming hardware has reached the point where we can really pull that off.
What does success, you just kind of mentioned what you were doing with Index and with Alex and trying to sort of move things forward there in that realm. What does success look like for Valve on this? Like, monetarily, does the whole project need to break even? Does it need to be profitable? Does that matter? Is it about driving Steam's subscriptions, engagement? What's sort of the KPI here?
Well, I think it gets harder over time. We're a very financially very successful company, right? And the problem with lots of interesting things is they tend to have exponential curves, and if you're looking at the wrong part of that curve, you're not making good decisions about the future, right? So with VR, our expectation is it's a very long haul and that they're fundamentally important technologies that are being developed. And if at any point you're sort of narrowly defining the goalposts and saying, well, how's that doing against, the latest CSGO, update? You're always gonna end up making bad decisions based on that. So for us, it's really, how does the press react? What are they saying about it? What are they saying about it a year later, right? What's the perception? What are gamers saying? What are their reactions? What are our partners saying are the kinds of things that are most helpful to us? Because our assumption is these are long-term decisions that we're making about how we can contribute to the health and the vitality of this ecosystem. And we're always going to be successful as long as that's continuing to happen. So, there are people who have those kinds of opportunities, and it's really a question of do they make smart decisions, about how to keep the ball rolling down the hill. And for us, this seems like an obvious opportunity for us to address that. So in terms of feedback, it's really how are people going to react, right? We expect that we're going to sell a ton of these. But it's more important where everybody says, and we can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah.
Or developers coming to us and saying, this opens the doors to a lot of opportunities. So it's just about those expectations about the future, which are going to be most critical in us determining whether or not we've been successful.
Pirlo, from your perspective, what does success look like on this project?
I think Gabe summed it up really well. If down the line we're talking to a bunch of developers on Steam and they're saying, oh wow, this really helped us connect to either a new set of players or players are that much happier playing in the mobile space, and we didn't have to do that much work for it or even no work at all. I think this looks great from our perspective.
And if it opens up new opportunities for them when they're thinking about game designs, right? We've been sort of blocking a set of things off as kind of being static and fixed. And if they start viewing this as an opportunity to be more innovative, how can we evolve the input side of this? Right. What are the other technologies that we can bring to this that enable new kinds of experiences and new gameplay mechanics?
Well, along those same lines, what have your previous adventures in hardware development taught you heading into this?
Well, that's a very long, every time we do anything, we tend to learn a lot. I think Index taught us a lot about the value of doing things hand in hand in software and hardware development, which is something that we expected, right? It was that I felt like we were really successful in capitalizing on, designing the controllers at the same time we're designing Alex.
Yeah.
Trying to do stuff in a game really informs that. A lot of the technologies we've developed in some of these other hardware devices, like the game controller, applies directly to this. The learning curve has to be zero, right? You just have to be able to hand something to them and they say, oh, I know how this all works, right? It's like, oh, look, it does exactly what I expected. I used the touchscreen and it, worked properly. I'm used to, let's say, an Xbox controller. Oh, this behaves exactly how I'm expecting and the games are working. So that's an example of something that we learned there. Price performance is going to be one of the critical factors in the mobile space. And so we've had to be very aggressive in terms of pricing on the deck.
Well, speaking of which, I think this is the part where you get to tell me the price, because the audience will know by now, by the time this interview's up. But we've been seeing everything, and so we've actually been curious while we've been here. Now we know that there are multiple versions, all not teraflop wise, not power wise, but just we've got this different storage levels. So what is the price level here?
The three price points are $399 for 529 and 649. And the only difference between those is the amount of storage and the speed of the storage. So as you go bigger, we're also making it faster.
Yeah, and you've got an NVMe drive in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference. But all of the other characteristics, in terms of the gaming performance that you're going to get, they're going to be identical.
I'm curious, what were some of the other names considered for Steam Deck on the whiteboard?
Steam Buddy, Steam Pal.
Very early on, we had pretty terrifying prototypes. So we gave them appropriate names like Ugly Baby and things like that. Those weren't great.
Steam Ugly Baby.
Yep. Yeah. So we didn't go for that as far as name goes.
So one of the really interesting aspects of this that I guess I wasn't expecting coming in here, since we're here just for full context. We're here about a week before this thing gets publicly announced. Is it is a PC and it can run other game stores. So you can connect up. You're not just locked into Steam here, which I think when you look at a device like this, that's your expectation. At least it is for me as a gamer. Is, oh well, I'm in that ecosystem and that's it. So it basically means that this thing is the Xbox handheld that Microsoft never made, because if you have Game Pass, you can just sign in on the Microsoft store, download their PC games. Have you talked to Microsoft at all about this yet? Because obviously, I'm sure you have a limited circle of trust here. Like, do they know you're about to release an Xbox handheld?
Well, you know more of the details than they do, but our view is that the openness of the PC ecosystem is the superpower, right? That we all collectively benefit from. So if you want to install the Epic Game Store on here, if you want to, run an Oculus Quest on it, those are all great. Those are features, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear as a gamer. I don't want to hear that somebody's got some Trojan horse that's going to try to lock me down. I want to hear whatever I want to do. If there's hardware I want to attach to it, if there's software I want to install, I can just go and do it. And we think that's great.
Yeah, all the people working on this product are PC users themselves, right? And we know that there's tons of value that is not necessarily on Steam that we use on a daily basis, either in gaming or non-gaming users. So we would have been pretty bummed to try to deliver something that's essentially just a portion of what PC is all about.
What were the guardrails for this project maybe from your level as the person sort of encouraging and green lighting everything? Were there any sort of limitations or was it just sort of make the best thing were you trying to hit a price point? Like, I'm just kind of curious how it shaped from like the 10,000-foot view of what we ultimately ended up with here.
The most fundamental one was great performance on your entire Steam library, right? That's the fundamental thing that needed, and it had to be open. And then that was the thing. It's just like, I want to be a gamer who's used to playing, PC games. I want to pick this up and says, oh, it all works.
Yeah.
It's all fast. And then price point was secondary and painful, but that was pretty clearly a critical aspect to it. But the first thing was the performance and the experience was the biggest and most fundamental constraint that was driving this. You just want to hand this to somebody, who plays PC games and have them go, oh, this is great.
Like, are you guys? I know you hear a lot in the console space of it's the razor blades model of, okay, well, we're selling the console at a loss to try and get you in the door on the software. Like, are you guys trying to just break even with it and just get these out there, or can it be something? Because the price for what this thing is doing seems pretty impressive to me, as I'm literally hearing the price for the first time. So are you guys just?
So our view is, if we're doing this right, that we're going to be selling these in millions of units.
Yeah.
And it's clearly going to be establishing a product category that ourselves and other PC manufacturers are going to be able to participate in. And that's going to have long-term benefits for
Right.
us. So that's sort of the frame in which we're thinking about this. There aren't sort of explicit, we think that this makes sense, and we think that this makes sense going forward at this price point. We don't have some tying ratio. We don't say, and then we have to sell 8 games, for each
Right.
one of these, incremental 8 games for each one of these cells. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Our calculus is more just sort of like, is this the right product, and is it a great way to test out the assumption that there's a huge amount of value both to game players and game developers to extending the PC ecosystem in this direction. That's the real test more than anything else.
That wider view of the curve you
Yeah.
were talking about earlier, rather
Right.
than looking at it super narrowly.
Right. Nobody has ever said, we have a giant success where clearly there's huge demand for this, but our margins are too thin, right? And a lot of people have overpriced things and killed the opportunity and sort of convinced people that it's an uninteresting category from the get-go. So we're definitely, our view is we're doing this for the long haul, and there's a lot of opportunity. And so far, everything we're hearing from our partners, mainly because they're the ones that we've talked about it the most, is a lot of enthusiasm that this is something that they're really going to be happy to see the PC community, pushing into this space.
Were there any Gabe-specific features that you requested in the device? Did you kind of weigh in with any wish list items that Pierre-Louis and the team had to then go and work in?
Well, I do immediately play Dota with each new version that I get, so I've probably been a little more laser focused on the usability testing
So
of Dota.
So you're the trackpad then. That's a big one for
Yep.
you. Makes sense.
But that's just me being a gamer, right? That's
Yeah,
not me being
exactly.
being a president.
You can't help. Well, okay, we as gamers can't help but look at this and see, a similar form factor to a Nintendo Switch. I mean, and you guys, you play everything. So, and Nintendo of America's not far from here.
Yep.
Has the Switch influenced this at all, either ergonomically or in terms of just showing, hey, there is a market for, like, higher end handheld gaming, or is it just not really a factor for you?
There have been attempts to provide mobile gaming platforms for a really long time, and for me, as somebody who's used to sort of high-end desktop PC gaming and console gaming, they always felt like they were compromises. So I think Nintendo does a great job targeting the audience they do with the content that they have, and that's going to be different. Like, when you pick this up, it feels much more like the ergonomics for somebody who's used to playing with, an expensive game controller, right? And it's because of that, it's bigger and it's bulkier than a Switch. And if we're right, that's the right trade-off to be making for the audience that we're going after. And obviously, I think they've sold 85 million Switches.
Doing all right.
Well, it's obvious that they've made the right set of trade-offs for those customers and that kind of content. And we'll just have to find out whether or not we've made the right trade-offs. For me, it feels supernatural and makes a lot of sense when I'm trying to play, Resident Evil Villages on this. We're going to find out pretty soon whether those choices that we've made are correct. But I think they are. So.
Pirlo, how about you in terms of, was there anything about the Switch where you guys kind of collectively go, oh, well, we like this about it, so let's look at that, or we don't like this about the ergonomics of it that we want to address on our device?
I don't want to criticize. I mean, there are a
No,
huge
no, I'm
number of
not-
people who love their Switches,
Yeah,
so
of
I don't
course,
want
I'm
to come
one of them.
across as negative. Yeah.
We never really looked at it in those terms.
Yeah.
Like we're focusing on, as Gabe said, like our kind of our library and what people are, how they're engaging with PC and trying to get the best solution for that. I think they're really two parallel things there.
Well, all right, let's,
Let me move this way.
yeah.
If you're a gamer and you pick up a Switch and you pick up one of these, you're going to know which one is right for you,
Yeah.
right? And you're going to know it within 10 seconds. So
What can Valve do to help avoid the pre-ordering nightmare that gamers endured with the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5 launches last year, or if anything?
we're going to have a reservation system. People can, as soon as the announcement goes live, they can start reserving whichever SKU they want. So, and that'll give them a sense of when those deliveries are going to occur. And all the we're not going through any sales intermediaries, so they
Right.
should have a pretty accurate understanding of when they'll get their devices.
So all sales will go through Valve, similar to the Index. It won't just be in Target or Best
We may
Buy.
end up doing that eventually, but for
Eventually.
now,